Hi, everybody, and welcome to the January edition of AI Horizons. So I'm very happy that everybody could make it today because this is the weather cancellation makeup from January 16th. So that was a fun happenstance for AI Horizons. But we're all here now, and it looks like we have a great turnout, which is exciting because I think we have a fantastic slate of speakers for today's AI Horizons. Before we jump into that, though, we do have one housekeeping item to announce. So if you were here at last Make It in the last AI Horizons of 2023, we had Ryan here talking about Make It, what Make It is, when it will be. A quick recap of that for those of you that are attending or missed that last year. Our group is hosting Make It, which is a conference that will be conference in March that will be all around artificial intelligence. It will be the day before the TLT symposium. It will be on a Friday from 11:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and there will be 3 sessions based around hands-on with AI tools. So our team has created 3 sessions around video AI, text and image AI generation, and interactive gaming AI generation. And today we are opening registration specifically to folks attending AI Horizons first. So we'll be dropping a link here in the chat, but you are all welcome to come register for the event. The event is free, and it will be on a Friday and the day before the symposium. And I'm going to drop in the link here for registration right now. So that is the makeit.psu.edu website. Registration will be right on the front page. So we welcome everybody here to go and register. And then there's more information on the webpage. We can also take any questions, drop them in chat. We will have guests answering them there. But yes, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, which is Mila Sanina. She is an assistant teaching professor in the Bellisario College of Communications. And she will be talking today about how she is using AI tools in her journalism classes. And she might sprinkle in some findings from her recent trip to Adobe Max last year. So without further ado, I'm going to let Mila take it away. And thank you, Mila.
Excellent. Thank you, Zach. Thank you for having me here. It's my first AI Horizons, and I'm delighted to be with you all. I'm going to actually use my slides, so apologies, I will not be taking questions during the presentation, but after that, after I conclude, I will be happy to answer any questions, and then we'll be happy to follow up with anyone who wants to talk offline as well. So let me just share my screen real quick, and I will, I hope you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. And let me just do you. Wait just a second. Okay, so I'm going to talk quite a bit about what I'm using in my classes, and I teach 2 classes. Now it's my 4th semester at Penn State, so I'm relatively new. But I have been integrating ChatGPT into some of the activities that I do with my students. So one of them is for Intro to News Writing and Reporting. It's a writing-heavy course. It's basically students learn the fundamentals of reporting, news gathering, interviewing, researching, and fact-checking. And one of the assignments, the first one actually, is to write an obituary. And to know how to write an obituary, it's actually a very good proxy to know how to write a profile piece about somebody. You know, preparing for that assignment, I actually do use ChatGPT to reinforce some of the lessons. So at first, I demonstrate what a good solid news obituary means, how to write one, what does it include, what does it not include, what kind of news tone it has. But so we learn all of that, and then I ask them to use ChatGPT to generate a 500-word news obituary about a person of some notoriety. They can use a person of their choice, or they can use the list that I offer. ChatGPT typically does not generate obituaries that are more recent. Sometimes it does, like with even Barbara Walters. It said, well, it's still, she's still alive, but it's just because of the data that is it has at least free version. But I give the list of the names, and students generate using ChatGPT. It's an opportunity for us to talk about generative AI and also talk about some of the pros and cons and how it's been used, and then they generate that, and I ask them to analyze what are they learning now based on what they have learned about good practices of obituary writing, and now they have this ChatGPT generated obituary. And they then fact check it, what chatbot generates, and then they edit it. We talk about it, and then they submit it to me. It's not an assignment. If people don't want to use ChatGPT, I basically tell them, tell me the name, I will generate it. I know that there is some philosophical or other reasons why students may not be interested in it, but I feel like it's very important for me to talk about AI literacy in this course and how to use it. There is a second assignment that I am also using, or asking students to use it, and that is when there is an assignment called A Person on the Street, where they take a topic and then go out and interview people about it. But before they go out, they are supposed to students are asked to generate a list of questions that they may ask around their topic. And they generate those questions. And then when they come in to class, we do an activity where we are basically learning how to design a good prompt so that they could get some other ideas on these questions. And then we compare and contrast of what chatbot generated and what they generated. And that is also an opportunity for us to talk about it. The other class I teach is actually multimedia production. We do use a lot of Adobe Suite tools. So Adobe Creative Suite is something that, from Adobe Photoshop to Adobe Premiere Pro to Lightroom. So there are different uses of it. It's a course very heavy on video editing and still editing. We do quite a bit of photography there as well. There have been quite a few ways in which Adobe actually integrated AI tools into its suite. And I must say, as Zach said, that I went to Adobe Max, and that actually has been just mind-blowing. They're really promoting it. It's a huge focus. They are looking at it as their marketing edge. And it's basically Adobe Max was all about artificial intelligence tools and how Adobe is integrating it throughout. It's a conference that was heavy on creatives, people who produce content, work with content. And so I have actually brought some of the lessons into my multimedia production class from Adobe Max. So we have been, the way that I'm using it is initially as a conversation. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what I do with my students. AI literacy is something we talk about because, in journalism, in photojournalism, you have to be very careful about how you touch up your photos, what is truth, what is the accurate reflection of reality on your photographs. And the way that I demonstrated is I actually, I'm going to, let me see here. Can I, here we go. I'm going to show you, here's an example of a photo that I took with my students outside. And I used this still to demonstrate how how Adobe is integrating AI into their toolkit. So here is a photo of just, you know, if you recognize Willard on the background, this lawn, and then I just go and say, okay, well, here is the tree trunk. I want to try to, oh, well, actually, let me see here if I can use my lasso tool and say, I want to just get rid of this trunk here. And I'm going to actually say generative fill, and I'm not going to type in anything here and see what it does with this. So generative fill, when you don't prompt it, it tries to remove objects from your photograph. And, you know, it's working on doing that. And here is actually just another trunk that is very strange, but it happens sometimes. So this is a place where you say, oh, you know, yeah, this is where AI may not work so well. Let me see, maybe I can still get it here. Sorry, to select. Maybe I did not capture enough of the environment for it to figure it out. Let me try it again. Generate. So it's taking its sweet time. So here is an example. You can see that there are some, you know, aberrations here. Like if you are looking with an eye, with an eye of a person who's been at that place, you know that that's not what it looks like. You also see the matching is quite off. It's okay, you know, it's fine, but it's there are a lot of flaws here. But, you know, in reality, before AI, if I wanted to remove that trunk, it would take me hours to match that environment to actually remove it. And then I do like silly, a bit of a, you know, exercise here is I do generative fill and I say, okay, let's put elephant in front of the Willard building. And, you know, it generates an elephant. And, you know, I sometimes like say, oh, let's put a pool right here. And it generates a pool. So, you know, I know that it's just a demonstration of how maybe this examples can be used in an innocent way. Here are the different elephant types. Here, the AI tool gives you actually three. So, and this is an opportunity for me to bring it up and say that, as you can see, here is an innocent example, but the reality is that this AI technology can be misused and actually exploited for maybe not so innocent goals. And then we have that conversation about it. Adobe has actually been more or less, I would say, maybe careful about what they are allowing into prompt. So Adobe Express is the tool. It's basically Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe Premiere, all in the light sort of setting where you can use some of the tools. And Adobe Express, if you go in there, it also has Adobe, it has AI tools integrated into it. And what I show there is
No
that
long underwear.
You can actually see that Adobe has some capabilities that basically, like if you wanted to type in, show me incarcerated individual in the US, and it will say, well, your prompt is inappropriate and we're not allowing that to be, basically you can't generate that. So it has some guardrails, but what they are and what the search terms are, you know, it's obviously not known. And Adobe is one of the creative tools that is using AI. It's not the only one, and there are a lot more that have been used and misused, and you probably have seen examples in the news. Let me just show you a little bit here. I can't, just a moment. I'm going to come back to my slides here. So I wanted to also just talk a little, just quickly about, I also teach entrepreneurial journalism, and I use ChatGPT as an assistant, because what happened to me was that I had an assignment where I asked people to analyze a media ecosystem and take an example of innovative newsroom and analyze it from the perspective of their business model, revenue streams, and other aspects of it. And I got an assignment submission that was completely ChatGPT generated. And it was my, like, honestly, light bulb, which was that I really need to lean in and focus on showing and teaching students that, yes, it can be used by a tool, but it's not in no way a substitute to your original thinking. And so I really leaned into that class. I showed how to use, how to generate prompts. We started generating ideas, talked about what are the flaws, what are the opportunities here. And we actually used it to a brainstorm, like as a use ChatGPT as a brainstorm companion, right? Like if you want to develop a business canvas, it can help you to generate some ideas. If you want to develop revenue streams ideas, it can also be a brainstorming companion. That was my reinforcement. The last slide, and I'm going to go real quick. I know that I'm hitting on my time. So one big takeaway from Adobe Max I wanted to bring into this conversation is that they have really been emphasizing that a lot of the big Fortune 500 and beyond companies are planning to use generative AI in one form or another. And they had Deloitte present their survey of 650 executives of the biggest US companies and basically said that, yes, AI is here. We're going to basically already a quarter of us are using it. And another 45% are going to plan to be using it by the end of this year. They also are predicting that there will be a huge demand for content. And to meet that demand, you absolutely would have to use AI tools because it has been growing and is predicted to grow even further. And 65% of companies are very or extremely concerned about intellectual property or legal risks of using generative AI, which means that the big, like, oh, don't worry about the jobs and the labor market. It's all going to shake itself out because people, AI tools still need humans to oversee them and to make sure that it's ethical and responsible to use these tools and integrate them into the business. So on that note, I'm going to stop and I'm happy to take questions here. Okay, so here we go. Embrace the new and make intelligent decisions. If you're old to eat fish, you're old enough to spit out the bones. Okay, thank you. A slightly related, is there any word on whether we'll be allowed to require students to have a GPT-4 subscription for a course? I'm not able to respond to that. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, thank you, Mila. That was fantastic. So it looks like we did have some questions, but they were unrelated to your presentation. But if anybody does have any questions for Mila, you can unmute, you can ask her now. If you're still stewing, thinking, feel free to drop them in chats, but I will give you about 10-15 seconds if anybody has any burning questions for Mila. Yes, it looks like we have a hand raised here. So Lisa
yeah. Oh.
has a question in there. Are students concerned about ethics with AI that you have found in your course?
Yes, I have. And actually in my, when I ask people for non-graded submissions of this obituary assignment, I have received a lot of just concerns, but also actually comments that were very of gratitude. People saying that, thank you so much for actually showing us the pros and cons of using ChatGPT, because I feel like there are extremes on campus. People who are like all in, it's great, it's wonderful, let's all use it. And those who have been, no, this is a violation of, academic integrity. And I really appreciate you integrating something like that. We also do talk verbally about what are the concerns, where are the tension points of using AI tools. And I really have been heartened in just seeing that students are really hyper aware. So I have been really, really pleased to hear that.
Awesome, thanks. It looks like Chris Stubbs has a question. Chris?
Thanks very much, Zach. And Mila, thank you for your presentation. You mentioned earlier that if students feel uncomfortable using generative AI tools, you're willing to generate, say for the obituary assignment, you're willing to generate things for them. I'm just kind of curious, how often does that come up, that you have students who just, they want to opt out entirely of experimenting with these tools?
So I only can present anecdotal data because I don't, I don't penalize in any way students who don't submit or are not interacting in the class, don't voice their submissions or outcome what they got from ChatGPT. But in the class of 20, typically there is one student.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. It looks like we have two more questions in chat, and I think we'll end with those last two questions. Aaron asked, what about hallucinations? Seems like locating false info is an art form more complex. Locating false info is an art more complex than prompting. How do you work with students on this end? And Adrian asked about, on the journalism assignment you mentioned, how did it turn out in regard to reliability of factual basis?
Yes, that's a great question. That's why fact checking is part of it. So the sourcing, there are a lot of hallucinations, and the sourcing of it. ChatGPT creates fake quotes, right? Like in obituary, typically you always include perspectives of people who can talk about the deceased. And it's just like creates this fake quotes of famous people. And we talk about it, about how it's unreliable. It does not have a barometer of truth or accuracy or fact checking, and how it has been, like in the for legal cases, even people cite cases that have never existed because they use ChatGPT to generate them, so to generate the response. So that's an opportunity, the factual, and also, the tone, like the world will mourn the passing of the great icon, Barbara Walters, who was absolutely gorgeous and was a role model. And so the way that students immediately are like, this is a not news tone. And then, and then in terms of accuracy, so I asked them to go and seek, like, okay, identify every fact that ChatGPT produced and go and fact check it, find the reliable information. How would you do that? Also, I must say that there have been interesting interactions with the ChatGPT, because when I initially designed that assignment, I was like, oh, I'm curious, would it generate like an obituary of Taylor Swift? And students are horrified when I give that example. They, Taylor Swift, how dare you even think of that? But the reality in the newsroom, like there is probably obituaries of President Carter written, and other things, like people write obituaries in advance. So this is an opportunity for me. I typed in, generate an obituary of Taylor Swift, and AI and chatbot spit out, said, well, generated that it's inappropriate of me to generate an obituary of a living person. But then 2 months later, I asked the same prompt and it gave me that. So it's actually really interesting to see how sometimes it's a black box, really, like you don't know what's happening in there. So that's been the experience with fact checking and hallucinations. Thank you for the questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Mila. So that is all the time we have for our first part, but if anyone has any more questions, please drop them in chats. We can perhaps get to them at the end, or Mila can answer them in chats. But now we're going to move on to, I'm going to kick this over to Dani McCauley and a fantastic group of Commonwealth instructional designers they are going to share an AI toolkit that they have developed. So Dani?
Excellent, thank you. Just gonna move around a couple things on my screen as we get ready and started here. So thanks, Zach, and thank you for having us today. We're excited to talk a little bit about, as Zach said, an AI toolkit. So I did want to start that from the Commonwealth campus instructional designers perspective, we do meet bi-weekly, and just through our discussions, we tend to just kind of compare notes. What are other campuses facing? How are things going with their faculty? And so through those discussions, we realized that we wanted to also support TLT's efforts to provide, faculty professional development and professional development in general around AI. We knew these monthly meetings were really, useful and helpful. We know that there's units having live workshops, and there's many resources that are coming from a lot of directions. But with all of those resources, we did realize that we wanted some type of sort of asynchronous engagement that faculty could use and take away. And so we sought to create some written guides that could be quickly kind of like digested or used by faculty on some specific topics related to AI. And we also knew that we needed some of these resources very, very quickly. So we've been working on, as Zach said, sort of an AI toolkit. And so before we get to that toolkit, I would like to just thank the individuals that you're seeing on my screen that have been working as a group to create this toolkit. So that includes Matt, Allain, Griff, Elizabeth, Joe, and Kellen. And so you will hear from a few of them today as we kind of share different parts of this toolkit. But again, I just wanted to take a minute and thank them. We do kind of see some future opportunities, even beyond what we are going to share with you today. So we're going to use some time at the end to sort of brainstorm with all of you and have an opportunity for you to give us a little bit of feedback as well. And so just a little overview of what we're going to talk about. We're going to go over to the website. And so I think Elizabeth is going to put the link directly to it in the chat. I'm going to give just a really brief overview of the website itself, and then we're going to take a few minutes and look at the couple of handouts and toolkit items that we have with these individuals. And then, as I said, we'd like to wrap up with a little bit of conversation and some future directions, and Allain will be leading us in that. So let me just go over to the website. So I'm going to start here at our Commonwealth campus teaching support site, so that in case you land here and don't have that direct link, if you do come to this site and go under the menu item for toolkit, and then if you click on the artificial intelligence and teaching, but again, we've provided you with the direct link to the site. So just letting that load. So you can see at the top, just, some general information. I do want to specify that the items that the part of AI, I guess I should say, that we are focusing on are those generative AI tools like ChatGPT. And so we did kind of hone in and specifically focus on that in particular. So then as you scroll down the page, you can see some of the elements of the toolkit, and we're going to talk about those more in depth. We did want to just include a brief section about getting started with AI. So if you haven't jumped into a platform like ChatGPT and are starting to work on some prompt engineering, we wanted to, again, provide a little bit of guidance there. And we have links to 2 really good resources. These aren't necessarily Penn State resources, but they provide some really cool ideas for different creative ways that you can put prompts into any of those Gen AI tools and have some output. So I encourage you to take a look at those. And then we did want to highlight there's so many great resources coming out from different units at Penn State. So those are what you can see at the bottom. So again, just wanted to give a brief overview of the site itself. And so now I will open our first document and pass it to Kellen to share a little bit about this, this resource.
Thank you, Dani. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being here. So yeah, I'm going to go over this, what I would consider sort of the first document in the series of 3 that you'll see in just a moment. But as a group of instructional designers, when we started to talk about how to support faculty around AI, really some of the initial conversations that we had were based on conversations that we were all having with faculty. And if I remember correctly, it really started with faculty saying, AI is really new for me. It's impacting classes in different ways. Academic integrity is one of those things. I really don't know how to have conversations around this emerging sort of technology, emerging in the way that we use it. So we came up with this toolkit, or this this guide here for how do you have conversations in the classroom about AI? And more broadly, how do you communicate your standards for AI use in the classroom? So this sheet kind of goes over a before, during class, and then sort of like an all throughout the semester, sort of what you can do to have conversations and really just communicate your stance around AI use in the classroom. So it really, we had to say to faculty, it really, you have to think about, what is your stance on AI, right? So what are your policies going to be? So what motivates those policies? Because this is going to shape how you have those conversations, how you communicate the use of or the non-use of AI in the classroom. We talked a lot about faculty's concerns around trust with students. Is your policy or your stance around AI going to sort of create trust in the classroom? Will it undermine it or weaken it? Also, how can AI support or sort of detract from learning struggles in the classroom? And once we thought, faculty had those things set, then how do we continue to have those conversations within the classroom? How do we figure out, what do students already know about AI? How are they using it? How did they see AI being used ethically or maybe not ethically? How can it enrich students' education experience, right? Is it something that is just a no-no, or is it actually that we should never use, or is it something that actually can enrich and enhance students' education, like we saw with the previous speaker, that there are definitely ways in which it can do that, and how, as a faculty member, will we sort of embrace that and make it an educational experience? And then, of course, we want to continue. It's not just a one and done sort of deal with just having, a conversation at the beginning of the class, but how are we, again, more broadly communicating our stance on and our use of and our incorporation of AI in the classroom? And that's through tools like the syllabus. There are tools for AI literacy orientation that I'm thinking might also be linked to that site that you see down at the bottom of the page, which Dani showed us earlier. Are you creating assignments in which you outline in the assignment or highlight some of your policy and stance on the use of AI? Are you communicating to students how AI can possibly be misused in your class? And then more broadly, how is AI being used in, out in the world, out in careers that folks have, maybe subsequent training that they might have that includes AI beyond their undergraduate degree? And then, of course, that last section with the continuing conversation throughout the semester is encouraging students to also use those best practices. I heard somebody say ethics earlier. So are students following the syllabus guideline? Are they asking clarifying questions of you? And then also, just helping them apply those good AI literacy principles, and then asking students to document AI as a resource in their brainstorming, their researching, and their editing.
Excellent. Anything else, Kellen, before we move to the next handout?
No, I think that was it. I love that the link is there too. So as a group of instructional designers, when you click on that link, it will take you to a list of all the campuses. So if this is something that you want to continue to have a conversation with your local instructional designer on, that handy link down at the bottom will take you to that particular section. So I think that's very helpful as somebody who also teaches.
Wonderful. Thank you. And next we'll pass to Joe, who's going to walk us through our next handout.
Thanks, Dani. We've been having conversations with faculty and students about where generative AI might ethically and practically fit into daily practices. And the conversations really kept turning toward where students struggle the most, right? So this document, which is 2 pages because I couldn't do one, obviously, is a lot of the areas that if an instructor feels comfortable can provide that support for a student who's struggling somewhere along the ideation or the creation process. So for those worried that, AI is going to end creativity or increase cheating or stop students from developing those basic skills, keep in mind, we tend to see students cheating when they're very stressed, right? They don't know where to start. They hit a roadblock, and their only solution they can come up with is to cheat, to enter it all completely into AI or look in a Google search and plagiarize or whatever it might be. So these are just those little steps along the learning process that might give them that nudge that they need just to keep moving forward in that ethical fashion. But again, going back to what Kellen was talking about, it has to be something you're comfortable with, something you've talked about within your syllabus or within your daily instruction, that students can utilize this kind of resource. But I can say from my own experience, I use most of these on a daily basis. So it very much comes in handy. And then I learn from AI generated this way. It gives me a model to draw from later on, should I hit a stumbling block later that kind of impedes progress. So for this document, if you want to go back to the other page, there you go, thanks. The first 2 here are actually real examples from a first-year seminar that I was teaching. We were just kind of going over the pros and cons, the benefits and disadvantages of AI and everything in between. And a student brought up, I'm really struggling right now I have to do a speech here pretty soon, an informational speech. It has to be 5 to 7 minutes. I have 0 idea what to present about. And so I asked, what are you interested in? And they said, in this real example, video games and basketball. So we put it into forget which one we used, doesn't really matter. We put it into AI and it generated some topic ideas. And one of those topic ideas really connected with her. And she said, I love this, but I don't exactly know, since it's not my idea. I don't know exactly what I would talk about. I kind of get an idea. So we just asked one more follow-up question, 3 to 5 key ideas, just to get them started. They're only going to pick maybe 3 of those, but it helps just get the ball rolling. And that thing that had taken her 3 days to avoid, in a matter of seconds, she now had an idea and some topics to hit on. And that's where she stopped. She was able to generate the rest. Another student said, I have to write a paper and I have so many ideas, and it can only be, 2 or 3 pages long. I don't know what to do with it. So we talked about organizing it, and we threw all the ideas into AI. It showed how some of the ideas actually were related. It showed just a possible structure. There was some back and forth with, this doesn't make sense, but what if I move this here? And then it just got them past that one step of, they already thought of all the ideas. They just needed to go that one step further of, I don't know what to do with all these ideas now. So that was another step along the learning process. If you want to go on to the next one, when I said threw ideas into AI, I don't remember. We were exploring all of them. We were doing ChatGPT and Google and a lot of different things. So I'm not sure which one we used. They're all basically similar in the output when we're talking about the basics of the learning process. But thanks for that question. If I remember, I'll let you know. But the understanding concepts, this was one of my favorite ones. I had a student who was going down to our Student Success Center, but unfortunately, there wasn't a tutor there at the times when they needed it. So I showed them how to use AI just to explain this like I'm a a 10-year-old, explain this like I'm in high school, explain this in simpler terms. And it became a self-tutor at their disposal, that when they had more questions, which are actually better questions, now they go ask the instructor, they go ask a tutor that they can find. But it's a lot of help just with those. I understand in this context, but we all know when a student comes in and takes your exam and you've now presented a new scenario that they haven't seen yet in class, then they don't know what to do with it. They can now test themselves with, what if I apply this in this scenario or this scenario? And they can get a deeper understanding of concepts just by using it and having conversation with some kind of generative AI platform. And the last one, revising and editing, kind of self-explanatory for most people. I know I use it very often for I type something up and I get to that one sentence that just sounds like I don't know how to type anymore. It's a run-on, or it's just confusing, the structure, whatever it might be. And I'll throw it in, can you make this clear? And it does it, and I can move on instead of spending 10, 15 minutes on one sentence and still not know if it sounds good. That's a common use. However, I'd like to really point out that AI can kind of level the playing field a little bit with those who have a language barrier, whether it be because of another language or a disability. An example I know I use with my faculty a lot is a student with dyslexia, throwing some sentences in there to make it clear, and AI is able to regenerate a sentence. So anything with clarity, and that's for something that's confusing or poorly worded, it's just a simple fix quickly. It doesn't, if you don't want to use, you want to explain to your students, don't use it all the time because it strips the style that they might have been writing with, but it might be okay based on your practices if they use it for stopgaps. So this resource really is just to focus on those struggles that force a student to cheat or look elsewhere for help, waste time, whatever it might be, those struggles. AI can do a quick fix that I know a lot of us have figured out in our daily practices.
Awesome. And okay, I think that's all for Joe. Yep. Thank you for that overview. And we just have our last one. And this was sort of our original kind of handout, or the kind of the nexus for the toolkit. So I'll pass it to Elizabeth to share about our academic integrity and artificial intelligence handout.
Thanks, Dani. So as Dani mentioned, this was kind of an original faculty guide, because what happened, which I'm sure has happened to many of you, is that a faculty member came to me on the York campus and said that he was concerned a student may have used AI beyond the guidelines in his syllabus. And we were just talking about, how do you gather evidence? This is a different way of figuring out academic integrity. So my DAA pointed me to Andrew Peck, who is the undergraduate studies assistant dean for academic integrity. And Andrew had so many wonderful strategies that were just much broader than gathering evidence, the importance of having a plan when you talk to your students, even conversation starters that another Commonwealth campus ID sent me a link to from Turnitin. They actually had conversation starters for how do you ask questions to students who you're concerned may have used AI in a way that is not allowed in your particular course. So those questions were so helpful. And then also how to share concerns, even thinking about the tone in which you speak with your students to help them increase their awareness of how they're using AI or how they're not necessarily pursuing the most honest efforts. So I really wanted to come up with a way of packaging that really helpful information from Andrew, making it something that was easy to share. So when getting together with a lot of those Commonwealth campus IDs that Dani showed on the first screen, we thought about how could we also encourage ways of updating assignments so that they would promote honest efforts. And there were so many great ideas. So we kind of packaged this up, and then I met with the University Academic Integrity Leadership Community, had to write down that full title, and they gave us so much more helpful feedback, and we did some updates, and this is the guide we have now. And of course, the disclaimer is that it's wonderful to talk to your local academic integrity committee. But as this situation is developing, we really wanted to get those ideas out there, those strategies that were helpful on our campuses. So that's the handout.
Excellent. Thank you, Elizabeth. So as we kind of go back to the website, we've gone through the current status of some of our handouts in this toolkit. We are continuing to work on this effort, but we wanted to at least, again, get something out there kind of quickly. So we wanted to put this out there into your hands for your use. We, again, welcome feedback, but I do want to turn it over to Allain, who's going to facilitate some of our, reflections and some further conversation. So without further ado, Allain.
Thanks, Dani, and just want to give a special shout out to Dani for her leadership and helping to coordinate us on this project. We've all come together to work on these guides, but really appreciate her help in getting us all together and keeping us honest. So we've started with these guides, and I just wanted to very briefly highlight a few process challenges and ideas that we had gone through. One thing that I think we really wanted to do is work on process aids that were as evergreen as possible. I feel like anxious chuckle is really what's coming to mind when I think about how quickly and how fast things are changing in the last year and a half. And so we really wanted to focus on things and guides that would be helpful to instructors, but then wouldn't be immediately outdated in a month or 2 months or 6 months. And so that was really something that we tried to focus on here. We tried to be fairly platform agnostic when we're talking about things. So, I mean, I think Band-Aid, ChatGPT, I think it's easy to kind of fall into using it. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, but we did want to try and be conscious that, it's not just about specifically ChatGPT, that there are other platforms that you can use, and that it's more about how do you think about AI broadly as opposed to a very specific tool. Related to that, something we struggled with is, we really did think about including a very basic, like how to use something like Copilot. But we know that because some of that's still in flux, and because my sense is that information will be coming from Penn State through a KB article or something to that effect, we wanted to hold off on that because we didn't want to run into the issue of, having outdated information or stuff that's not going to be useful. And so those are some of the things that we're thinking of as we're going through and building a process, but we are looking to expand this. So that's kind of where I want to pivot to our conversation on. We've started with these because I think these have been some of the conversations that us as instructional designers have had with faculty members that seem to have hit some sort of boiling point or threshold. But we're really curious to hear from you folks about what other in-time resources would be useful to you. We have a few ideas. For example, last semester, there were questions around Adobe Firefly and generative visual AI specifically. So if you're looking to incorporate image-based generative AI, is there anything different that you should be thinking about in comparison to something more text-based? Something like AI literacy, we're thinking of developing a piece on. And we're also looking to do something related to, how can we help to communicate both to faculty and students? How is industry changing as well? We focused a lot on teaching and learning in the classroom, and I think that's probably where a lot of our efforts are, but we do want to also help use AI as a way to draw a connection between the classroom and the kinds of roles that students will be moving into. So I'd like to maybe pause there. And Dani, would you be able to pull up the Padlet? And so what I would invite and encourage everyone to do, so we've dropped the link in the chat for this, and this is just our way to try and capture some of the great ideas that I know you folks have. We have 3 rough questions. We're interested to know, how is AI changing your discipline? How is AI changing your industry specifically? So those overlap. But are maybe different things. And then the last, which is what kinds of resources would be helpful for you? And so with that, I'd like to maybe pause there. Feel free to add to the Padlet, but if you do have active questions for us, happy to pause here and answer anything about the toolkit that we've developed so far. I think I see that Martha has a hand up, and it's Zach. It's okay if I just kind of jump in and
Yeah.
Martha, let us know.
Thank you. Yeah, I need to talk this out instead of trying to write it. First of all, thank you. This information needs to be spread broad and wide as fast as possible. So that's my first question. Is I'm on Faculty Senate. I actually just sent it to a committee. I think I'm trying to figure out a way to get this in the hands in a useful it's all presented in a useful way, but how to get it out there as fast as possible now to instructors. So that's my first pondering. And I know there's not an easy answer to that, but I think in Senate, I will definitely be passing this along anywhere, but I don't know where you've already passed it. So that's my first question. A second question is, I'm still curious and I'm still pondering what are right now, I know it's evergreen, I know it keeps shifting, and thank you for bringing that up because I'm tired of getting on our Penn State websites and finding stuff that's old. And old meaning even 3 months ago when you can't use it anymore. So thank you. I'm trying to understand right now. So I teach a thesis prep class. I teach a research class. I teach a advanced learning theory writing class. Okay, so what would be your go-to places? Because I just find that everybody has something different. I love Copilot. They can't use it, so that's kind of out right now. Help us out.
Thanks for the questions, Martha. So I can definitely speak to one. So I know that coming to this group was definitely one stop. We're also talking with David Hunter and the folks at the AI Hub to be able to include that on an AI newsletter communication. If there is an opportunity, we would love for you to be able to share this with Faculty Senate. And if we can help with that in any way, please feel free to email Dani, myself, or anybody else in the group. As far as the second, and Zach, you may also have thoughts on this. I think this is where some of the distinctions are a little muddy, where Copilot access, I understand, at least in terms of the Penn State umbrella, like faculty and staff have the enterprise access. And so that's where it's secure. It's effectively like that information is not being used in any unethical ways. That being said, my understanding, students can still use Copilot, maybe in the generic sense, like they could still use this, but it's not going to be part of like a Penn State protection license. Zach, would you be able to clarify that and or whatever recommendations you would have for Martha?
Sure, yeah. So great questions. My understanding is only faculty and staff have access to Microsoft Copilot Enterprise version. However, the Microsoft Copilot is available for free with a personal account. So if a student or even a faculty or staff would sign in with their personal Gmail or another account, they would still have access to it. It just would not be the enterprise version that has that extra layer of security and protection that Microsoft promises. I, however, find myself gravitating towards ChatGPT Pro. There is no Penn State license or use for that one. That's something that we have found for us works the best. But then when you get into image tools and everything, it starts getting very loose. So it's hard to say. But I found people gravitate also towards Perplexity, which is another free AI text tool that uses Meta's model. And then Google Bard, also people have found success in using Google Bard, which is also free to use as well. But the only one that is behind Penn State's access is Microsoft Copilot for faculty and staff.
I think
Thank you.
anecdotally. Oh, no, go ahead, Martha, please.
I just needed a quick follow-up because I'm ignorant on this. And that is, if you could put some website URLs in the chat, that would be fantastic. And how do you, GPT Pro, how is that different from GPT? Sorry, I just don't know. And I want to get faculty
absolutely.
as much info as possible.
So ChatGPT 3.5, which is just ChatGPT, that's the free basic version. ChatGPT Pro is running model 4, which is a newer model that's trained on newer data and also has access to newer plugins and tools. For example, ChatGPT Pro can browse the internet. So when you're asking it or inputting a prompt, it can give you back sources that it has found on the internet. It also has plugins, so you can do specific sort of instances of ChatGPT. For instance, there's a math plugin that you can do more math problems. A fun one, there's a coloring book page where you can generate coloring book pages specifically for that. So plugins give you another elements of specificity. And Pro also includes access to Microsoft Dolly 3, which is also available in Microsoft Copilot for use as well. But the Pro version includes the text-to-image tool as well. So it just includes more bells and whistles compared to 3.5, which only has the search, which only has the AI text tool.
So thanks everybody for dropping into the Padlet as well as the comments. Janet, I see that your hand's up, and I want to make sure that we get you before time is up.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm fully aware that it's 9:57, so I'll keep this short. First of all, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Congratulations. You guys are providing some amazing resources and the ability to share it, which is so great. The academic arena sometimes operates in silos, and this is amazing to be able to do this. In the spirit of that, and maybe Zach, this will go out to you. In terms of, we're the Big 10 or Big 20, whatever we are now, and there's benefits to that. There's a lot of things going on across the university about AI. Are you is this the main group? Who's the main group at Penn State that is doing this? And are the groups that are kind of leading this coordinating? So would we see these same resources in another place? How do we know where the central site is? And if I could throw a second question, Zach, this might be to you.
Sure.
The Copilot,
Mhm.
hopefully licensing, it'll come out for students. Is the university or these groups across the university going to provide training and education for students when they provide access to Copilot?
Awesome. So great questions, Janet. I'm going to attempt to speak to them. So starting with the first question, I would say AI Horizons is a great central location to kind of come together and ask these questions. I wouldn't necessarily say this is the place that is leading or getting everyone together, although sometimes we are. I know David Hunter is in this group, and he is in charge of the AI Hub. Which if you're not familiar with that, that is ai.psu.edu. I see David just turned on his camera. So David, if you want to speak to that for about a minute here, it's kind of like there's a bunch of places all doing different things, and we're all trying to collaborate and come together and figure this out. So David?
Zach, I couldn't have said it better myself. The AI Hub is yet another such place. And in fact, the AI Hub is supposed to be just that. It's supposed to be a hub. So Janet, it's a fantastic question. As we all know, Penn State is way too big with way too many people doing all the same kinds of things. The AI Hub is an attempt to try to get a handle on that. And so we're doing what we're doing right now is the right path forward, I think. There are other people on this call who could actually pipe in with a few additional comments that are relevant to your question, Janet, but I see that it's 10 o'clock, so I'm just going to stop now.
Yeah, and it is 10 o'clock, so I want to be aware of people's time. So if you do need to jump off and head out, you're welcome to. I will stay on and try and answer Janet's second question, which remind me again, quick spark notes, what that was. Access to
This is Copilot and it's the university. Yeah, training.
Sure, yeah, okay. So to my knowledge, I do not have a timeline of when or even if Microsoft Copilot will be available to students. I know we connected with that group last year in late November because this question came up in last year's AI Horizons as well. And they did not have a timeline for that. So, but if it is made available to students, I believe there will be some sort of partnership or collaboration between some groups providing this training to students, but I cannot say for specifics if or when that would come available. But I see Crystal does have her hand raised. Crystal, do you have a question or maybe some input to that?
You're good. Hi, Zach. Janet, I know lots of people are leaving, but I just had another thought, and I was chatting with Dave Hunter in the background. So Tiffany Petrosini, I'm Crystal Ramsey. I'm sitting in the Dreamery, so I my Zoom spaces doesn't have my face. Anyway, Tiffany Petrosini and I are co-leading the joint standing committee that's been charged by the provost to explore AI in instruction here at Penn State, and it's taken a little while to kind of get it off the ground, but we're moving now. We've got a very clear charge, clear guiding questions, clear objectives, And so much of what was talked about today is part of that charge. And your questions in particular are super relevant. You know, how do we identify all the things? How do we get them into a common place where people can find them and don't struggle with, you know, our perennial challenge of having so many things and we can't find anything. So, you know, we'll be asking lots of questions and engaging with lots of faculty and great folks like this Commonwealth Campus ID team, just to make sure that we are helping lots of people doing lots of things. I simply offer up this committee as yet another entity that's been charged to kind of look broadly, to see what's happening, to make sure that we sort of help to funnel things toward the hub. We've been talking with Dave about, you know, how to get things there and what makes sense. So keep that committee in mind and know that we're moving now pretty quickly.
Awesome. Thanks.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Janet, for the questions. So if anyone doesn't have any further questions, I believe that's all we have for today. I will give 3 quick housekeeping items for anyone sticking around. So anyone that joined late, Make It registration is now open. The link is in chat. I will also be posting the link in the AI Teams space. That date is March 22nd. It's a Friday. Registration's free. Also, the next day, March 23rd, is the TLT Symposium. And during that event, we are hosting, we're calling it the Spark Challenge. It's a newly formed, formerly Open Innovation Challenge, but we are still taking speaker presentations for that. So if you have an AI idea, you're welcome to present it or submit it. And then if you're selected to be a finalist, you will present it during the March 23rd symposium for a chance to win a cash prize to help further that idea. And last but not least, if you're interested in sharing AI Horizons, please reach out to me. In fact, I had several people privately message me some ideas that they have been doing in their classes. And it's not specific to faculty and instructors. If you're a staff that has a great idea, please reach out if you want to share. We want AI Horizons to be a space for the Penn State community to share your stories, your classes, your work. But without further ado, I think that is everything. So thank you for coming today. And until next time, please continue this conversation in the Teams channel. Thank you, everyone.